Hello, everybody. This is Dr. David Jockers, and today we're talking about why your fasting blood sugar may be high on a ketogenic diet. And as an individual who teaches and coaches people on a ketogenic diet, I hear this all the time. People are like, you know what? I test my fasting blood glucose, and it was 100, yet I'm in ketosis. My ketones are at 1.5 millimole per liter. And so how is that possible? My sugar would be that high, or, I'm getting questions like this all the time. And so I want to really dive into this topic in detail in today's presentation. And so if you don't know me, my name's Dr. David Jockers. I am a doctor of natural medicine. I really specialize in helping people get into and stay in ketosis and really live a ketogenic lifestyle. I have a clinic called Exodus Health Center that is in the Atlanta, Georgia area, in Kennesaw, Cobb County area. So you can look that up, Exodus Health Center. And this is my beautiful wife, Angel, my little boys, David and Joshua. And so when we look at how the body works with blood sugar, we understand that when we eat food, okay, and obviously food that's higher in carbohydrate or in protein, we're going to develop more glucose. But really almost anything, unless it's just pure fat, we are going to convert some of it into glucose, okay, blood sugar. And then as blood sugar rises, so especially if we're eating a high, our shrapnel that shred up the kidneys, they damage the endothelial lining of the blood vessels, causing arteriosclerosis and plaquing. They damage our nerves, causing peripheral neuropathy and things like optic neuritis, where diabetics lose their vision. And so they cause major problems. So insulin is really important to get the sugar into these cells, to open up the door and get the sugar out of the bloodstream and into the cells. So that's really, really important. And so you can see here in a normal cell, okay, you've got these insulin receptors and they're able to gobble up the glucose, right? So they're able to kind of take the glucose in and put it into the cells when necessary. However, you can see on the lower right here, this is an insulin resistant cell where they're not able to function well, okay? And so now you can see many of these receptors are damaged, they're blunted. And so now they're not able to uptake the sugar. So now you have elevated levels of sugar staying in the bloodstream, less getting into the cells. This is a big deal, is insulin resistance. And that's what we always have to understand. Now, there's this key phenomenon. It's called the dawn phenomenon. And what that means is that basically our body, between the hours roughly of 2 a.m. to 8 a.m., we're going to release a bunch of different hormones. In particular, cortisol is like the main one, but also growth hormone plays a role in this. And basically what that does is that elevates blood sugar. So all of a sudden we get this elevation in blood sugar that takes place during these hours between 2 a.m. and 8 a.m. And it's called the dawn phenomena. It's totally natural and normal. In fact, it helps us have energy when we wake up. So this sort of cortisol gives us kind of an awakening response where we feel more awake and more alive and just more present in the morning, as opposed to feeling really drowsy. That would be a sign of low cortisol in the morning. Now, the Smoji effect I want to show you guys here, this is different because there's a lot of confusion. People, when they research dawn effect or dawn phenomena, sometimes they come across this term Smoji effect. And so basically the Smoji effect is when a diabetic who's taking exogenous insulin, so shooting insulin, and they go ahead and they shoot too much at night before they go to bed. And so what happens then is the sugar drops too low. They get a major hypoglycemic response, and then their body flushes out a ton of stress hormone to elevate the blood sugar way up. And that's the Smoji effect. Now, dawn phenomenon, it's normal, natural. This is going to happen to somebody who's in a ketogenic lifestyle, as well as really just about everybody. I mean, we're typically going to have a little bit higher fasting blood sugar, or at least for many individuals we are, not everybody, than maybe our blood sugar throughout the day. And so how do we elevate the blood sugar if we're on a low carb diet? Well, basically, we've got different hormones like glucagon, for example, that stimulate our liver to break down stored sugar in the form of glycogen and to produce more glucose in the bloodstream. Okay, and so our body says, hey, we need higher levels of glucose, so we produce this. Now, somebody that's keto adapted, their body, actually their muscle cells are not going to, their body's so insulin sensitive. So the glucose goes up, but insulin does not rise with it. and their body really feels, the cells of their body really feel like they've got the fuel they need because they're so good at burning fats. So the cells, the muscle cells in our system, are not taking the sugar out of the bloodstream because insulin is low, and the cells feel like they've got the energy, the raw materials to produce the cellular energy that they need. So we end up with a little bit higher blood glucose. In fact, there's different ways to test this. And, obviously fasting plasma glucose is important, oral glucose, tolerance test, fasting insulin. There's a number of different things that I'll look at. LDH, which looks at hypoglycemia, things like C-reactive protein and hemoglobin A1C, to really kind of get a full idea of what's happening, in the body. But what we use is this thing called HOMA-IR, which is a homeostatic model assessment of insulin resistance. This is something that you can do. If you're able to test your fasting insulin levels, which unfortunately you can't do in a blood prick at your home, you've actually got to get a blood draw at this time. But I do think that there's researchers working on that, and I don't think it'll be long within the next few years where you'll be able to just test your fasting insulin right at home, right along with your fasting glucose. And it'll be really, really great to be able to see that. But basically, this takes your glucose times your insulin levels, okay? And then, based on the units that you're looking at, okay? So if you're looking at mass units, or if you're looking at milligrams per deciliter, then you're going to multiply that, or you're going to divide that by 405. If you're looking at molar units, then you're going to divide it by 22.5. So depending on your units, you're going to go ahead. Most people are familiar with the milligrams per deciliter. So you're going to go ahead, you're going to divide that, and you're going to come up with your HOMA-IR score. And so when we're looking at your HOMA-IR score, you can see, ideally, you want to get that HOMA-IR certainly under 2 and more like around 1 or less, okay? And that's kind of the ideal spot to be in there. And so this is something that you can be looking at to understand if your fasting blood glucose is an issue with high morning cortisol, which it certainly could be. If we overproduce that morning stress hormone, it could definitely elevate that blood sugar up too much. It could also obviously be an issue with insulin resistance if you had a pre-diabetic state to begin with, or a diabetic state, or it could just be an issue with this glucose refusal because your body does not need the glucose in the cells, and so it stays slightly elevated for a period of time early in the morning. So the HOMA-IR, and you could take a look at the link that I provided with this video to better understand that, where I break that down in the article in detail. Now, to test your fasting blood glucose or ketones, this is the measurement. I like to use this Keto Mojo. I found that it's really the lowest cost. There's some Precision Extra out there, but this is really the best cost, best value, is best ketone test, Keto Mojo, out there. So most common factors causing blood sugar imbalances. And actually, before I get into that, just real quick, back up here, you can actually get, pretty much all of these tests, except for the oral glucose tolerance test, done through my complete thyroid test on drjockers.com. So you can check that out. We can look at your fasting insulin, if you're having hypoglycemic reactions, your inflammatory levels, your 90-day period of blood sugar, and a whole lot more on that test as well. So we can look in detail at those things. Now, most common factors causing blood sugar imbalances, obviously poor nutrition, poor quality sleep. So if you're on a keto approach, but you're not sleeping well, this can certainly cause high fasting blood glucose. Low vitamin D levels. If you have low vitamin D, you're going to tend to have more insulin resistance. If you have thyroid issues, so if you have Hashimoto's or autoimmune disease against your thyroid, or if you have poor T4 to T3 conversion at the liver, gut, and cell membrane level, that can cause issues. And of course, if you have chronic stress, that can also cause major issues. And so that can lead to this high morning cortisol. And again, cortisol is normally going to be higher in the morning, but it can be real high if you got too little or poor quality sleep. Let's say you've got a newborn baby. Your morning cortisol typically is going to be very, very high because you're not sleeping real well. Let's say you just have a lot of stress and you're waking up in the middle of the night because of stress. You're waking up in the morning, your heart's racing because of stress. That can cause it. Loud alarm clocks, this is really common too. So you're sleeping, and then all of a sudden, boom, alarm clock goes off really loud. That can obviously frighten you and cause higher levels of stress hormone and higher blood sugar. Now, a really hidden area that most people are not aware of is the sleep apnea or nighttime mouth breathing. So when we're breathing primarily out of our mouth, we're going to stimulate more of a stress response, and have higher levels of stress hormones like cortisol. And then chronic gut infections, parasites, are known to elevate your blood sugar in the mornings, because they're causing stress in the body that you just aren't aware of. It's not mental, emotional stress, but it's a chemical stressor in the body. So these are all big factors that we've got to look at when it comes to high morning blood sugar. And so another common issue that most people aren't aware of as well is food sensitivities. Most people are familiar with food allergies, but really, food allergies are not common. They, especially with adults, it's only about 2% of adults that have these, and you notice them right away. This is kind of the anaphylactic reaction. This is a reaction where you eat peanuts and you have your lips swell up, right? It can be life-threatening. It's immediate reaction. Food sensitivities are delayed. They can last up to 72 hours after eating the offending food. So you may not notice anything for 2 to 3 days afterwards. And they cause more subtle issues, things that aren't deadly, but things like a headache. Okay, that's just a nuisance. Weight loss resistance is a common one where you're just not able to lose weight. Tiredness, eczema, mood issues, issues with your brain, irritability, digestive issues. So these can all be related to food sensitivities. And so sometimes just taking food out can be a big factor, and also just pulse testing. In fact, we've got articles on our website all about how to do pulse biofeedback testing to see if a food is elevating your pulse, creating a stress response in your body when you put it on your tongue. So food sensitivities. And on a keto approach, common things that people are sensitive to are nuts, eggs, also dairy. So things like cheese. Cheese is used a lot on many keto diets, and people are having issues with that. Eggs, another common one. So you got to look out for that as well if you are having this elevated blood glucose. Now, other things we can do to help keep to reverse insulin resistance and help with stabilizing our morning blood glucose levels would be fasting. Doing things like a simple fast where you're just doing 12 hours between dinner and breakfast. Always best place to start. You wake up in the morning, you drink a lot of water right off the bat, really hydrate your body well. Okay. And then once you're feeling good with that, you could try a cycle fast where you go 16 hours 3 times a week. So you're not doing it every day. You're doing it maybe 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Okay. And then Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, you're eating breakfast. Okay. And you can see how your body responds. On the simple fast days, you're hydrating well, making sure you're well hydrated. Okay. And then if you're feeling good with the cycle fast, you could try the strong fast where you're going 16 to 18 hours daily. Obviously, warrior fast or full 1 day fast. But doing some sort of intermittent fasting can be really powerful for downregulating inflammation in your body and improving insulin resistance. And then also doing things like lemon as well as apple cider vinegar can be helpful. This is a nice little recipe here where you do 1 to 2 tablespoons organic lemon juice with a little stevia, pink salt in water. And you can do this. You can obviously make a lot more of this. In fact, I do like 32 ounces of this in the morning, and it's awesome. And so I just drink that, just really hydrate my body up really well using drinks like this that are very, very good for stabilizing stress hormones, helping improve liver function, helping move the bowels, and stimulating bowel movement, peristalsis, muscle contractions in the gut to eliminate effectively. And that's super important for keeping stress hormones down. If you're constipated, your body is going to have higher microbial load, and you're going to produce a lot more stress hormones. Can be a lot more challenging on your body. Apple cider vinegar, use this throughout the day. You can obviously make little drinks, kind of like that lemon energy drink that you can be drinking throughout the day. You can also put it on food. So actually putting it on food reduces the glycemic impact of that food by 20 to 40%. So putting it on meat and vegetables, things like that can be really helpful. If you're making soups or stews, mixing it in. And also, obviously just doing it as a morning drink can also be good instead of the lemon, especially if you're sensitive to lemon or lime, then you can use that as a morning primer as well. Now, another supplement that I often will give my clients is this one called Cortisol Defense, which has a number of different herbs that are really good for balancing cortisol. Things like ashwagandha, lemon balm, theanine, banana leaf, and a couple other things in there that are really, really good for stabilizing stress hormones and keeping them balanced. And I'll typically have people take 2 and up to 4 of these at night before they go to bed, and it really helps with deep sleep and feeling really refreshed in the morning. Now, one thing I didn't talk about, I didn't touch on, was actually sleep apnea and mouth taping. And so I'm a huge fan also of mouth taping, where you actually put tape over your mouth. I have a whole separate YouTube video on that. And also I go over it in more detail in the article that accompanies this presentation. So check that out as well. Mouth taping can be really effective for telling the body, hey, because basically you tape your mouth and now you're breathing out of your nose and you're saying, hey, I'm in a safe place. I don't need a lot of stress hormones. I'm safe. And so that can be really effective too for lowering cortisol, getting more restful sleep, and having more stable blood sugar in the morning. So check that out. And of course, if you want more information on the ketogenic diet, the ketogenic way of life, I've got an incredible program called Navigating the Ketogenic Diet Program. You can check that out again at drjockers.com. We'd love to have you as part of our keto community there. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this training, and we will see you on a future YouTube